the enlightened you. I want to welcome everyone to another edition of Guidance for the Soul Life. And this topic is going to be a little controversial because so many people are feeling like they have all the answers for a lot of people. And what I want to tell you is that your soul may have something completely different in mind for some of us. Okay, so some of us are not meant to be the awakened souls, walking around, like space cadets. A lot of people will assume that people are walking around like space cadets with their heads in the clouds, right? Or out in outer space or whatnot. This is literally what it can feel like for some people, to be free from the confines of their own minds. Okay, so this is where a person who is like me is under the state of awareness of I am of guidance and I am an embodied soul, and that is where a lot of people are going to want to head. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean you get a free ride to heaven, okay? It's literally a process of taking each and every one of us into our own hearts, right? And saying, I love who I am. I may not be the most illustrious of guides for, these certain visions of where everyone comes through and say, I have the answers for everybody. We already know that is not the answer to our prayers. Others are going to say, I'm of, prayer. And, I had to work through this idea of, what the spiritual enlightenment souls are very much of prayer in many ways, versus what am I asking for when I'm praying. And if I'm coming from a place of lack, if I'm asking for something, or if I'm like feeling like I want something so bad. And that's the difference. A lot of people are thinking that it's just about reaching those higher levels of love. It's of love of self is where you go first. Now, what does that mean? Most people are going to say, I already love who I am. I'm big and badass is where some people go, right? And others are going to say, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Honestly, it doesn't mean you have to change the essence of you. The essence of you is going to stay true and internal, the internal you. But what happens is you start to hear these voices often, okay? And this is not to scare people, but these are your own vibrations coming to you, letting you know where you are in your process. Have I accepted all of who I am? What does that mean? Everyone assumes that means you're going to be like a model or, like the fit and trim. This was one episode that I did about, the characteristics of our body and how we look. Others will say, I'm being judged on the outside, and that makes it hard for me to go in and feel the beauty. Others will say, oh no, I overcompensate in my mindset when others place visions of less than on me. I will do that vision sometimes. And I will say, now I know where I'm at. Okay, so I'm having a reaction to someone else who is labeling me as less than. That's often what that is. Or labeling me something negative. And it is incredibly difficult for certain people to let go of those ideas. Now, what is that? Do I do that to others? If I do that to others, I can only expect for that to come back to me. What happens is, even if you aren't necessarily doing that to anyone on this plane to their face, that stuff's going to come back to you. It is literally a change in the way people behave in their bodies and in their minds. It's not about saying you have to walk on eggshells, but you will literally be shown what areas of discomfort do you still, go through. It's a process. It's not an awakened state and then you're just, gone forever. Usually there's layers of love that we work on when we go through the process of soul embodiment. And it doesn't mean that everyone is going to be a channel. It doesn't mean everyone is going to necessarily, blow through the index. So there's an index card for somebody that is saying you need to make sure people are understanding this is part of your career. So what I'm going to say is, if you are wanting some of your own guidance in depth and in major detail, you would have a soul session. And you can find that information on my website, brendagervais.com. But some people want to know what's in the cards for me. Okay, so here's another idea for some people. People are saying, I utilize a lot of tools to help me unwind my soul. It's usually about taking off the glasses, right? And putting on another pair of glasses. So it's like, am I looking at the world through a pair of glasses? Am I looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, right? Or what? Sometimes we can have those false identities that get placed upon us, and we say, oh, this feels really good. I love feeling like this. This could be something that people identify with, whether it's the empath energy, our identity. It is an identity for a lot of people, and they utilize that vision very much. And we have videos about that as well. But to be honest, I want people to understand that the enlightened you it's like the nature of who you are from various planes of understanding. And your soul comes in, and your soul says, you are beautiful. What you don't do is you don't embody the beauty that you already have. A lot of us are ashamed of who we are. This was one aspect of guilt, right? Or of religion, or of society. Society places a lot of shame on us, families, whatnot. You have to release a lot of that stuff. You have to be big and bold. And when I say big, I don't mean in your body. I'm talking about it's like your, not your aura. See, people here are thinking it's all about the spirituality realms, and it's not. Okay, many people will define enlightened in various ways. If I am taking on an identity as a spiritual master, I would know right away I'm not the right one for most. Okay, when I come through very strong, I'm not going to, basically give people a bunch of baloney and just massage the egos. That's the nature of where a lot of the self-help visions are as well, right? No, a lot of us are reinforcing those ideas that there's something wrong with us. Okay? And that's what we keep getting told. We're supposed to be doing something else. We're supposed to be honoring somebody else's work. We're supposed to be looking in and figuring out, why did I hear from the soul of Macy Gray, right? This is part of my process. I get called out on a daily basis, usually by various soul visions, to see who I align with and who I don't, and in what way. So while I may appreciate the music, it doesn't mean that I necessarily want to create with that soul one-on-one, correct? I could. But what happens is, if I'm hearing something that is more controversial or a little bit more, it's like out of kilter from who I am, I can tend to have those instantaneous reactions versus the idea of what I've been guided to do, which is telling someone and thanking someone for the wisdom that they're showing me. And that doesn't necessarily mean face to face, okay? Because we align on different levels of love. Now, for those of you who are hoping for a winner chicken dinner, that's someone else is going to kind of understand that. We're going to tell you about it's like the directives that people are giving out to people in the spiritual enlightenment camps, okay, that may not serve all, okay? And if you find yourself in those areas or groups and you start to feel discomfort, remember, it could be that you're just not there yet, or it could be that there's a reason you feel like you need to like hit the road. Okay? Some of us are not here to play nice, is what some souls are getting told. And they will be very confrontational with others in their wisdom. They will say, I know that this is not going to serve this community or this nation or this globe, based on various levels of enlightenment that they feel that they have embodied. You want to go to those light workers, you're going to hear those kinds of words. It doesn't mean it's for everybody. Most people do not want to be dictated to about what it is to be of soul. This is a personal process for all of us. It is not about trying to reach a destination. It is not about trying to be better than anybody else. It is not about trying to flex our mind muscles much. I flex my mind muscles is where a lot of people go. We like outwitting the competition, right? Here's the deal. I have a lot of souls who will come through with this idea that I'm in competition with somebody, right? I'm not trying to win any arguments. What I'm doing is I tell people where they land in the vision of love. Okay? So if your idea of self-love is that I need to belittle somebody else in order to do that for myself, you might want to think again about trying to go through the process of soul embodiment, right? No, we're all doing it. We're all doing soul work. But the embodiment of your soul often includes becoming a guide. So if you're not a guide for others, by all means, do whatever makes you feel good and lifts you up. I would highly advise against putting others down. But that's because of what I have gone through, which has been brutal in some areas of my life, because I resisted the changes that my soul was wanting me to make, which was ignorance is bliss. Oftentimes, people, ignorance is bliss. Sometimes you don't want to know what other souls are thinking about you. Okay, and that's kind of the process that I'm unwinding. You see, I went through that place where I was being told I could be a telepath. Okay. What I do is a form of telepathy, but it's with my own soul. And then my soul brings me those soul visions of others. Okay, other souls. If you start to hear the direct thoughts of other souls, that's when people are going to start dropping off, because they're like, no way, no how do I want access to that information. But that's actually where we head in the future. It's a higher vision, and it's incredibly difficult, and I would not wish that on anybody at this point, because most people are very much, it's like allured into the vision that it's all roses on the other side of the veil. Okay. What I tend to do is align with those higher visions of love, and then the words are beautiful. But if you're not in a great place in your mind, without, kicking out people or, basically telling people how they need to be, then you might find yourself in a place where you start hearing a lot of that stuff coming back to you in different forms from different kinds of souls, and it can be a painful process. And that's the nature of love for our souls. We must go in, we must align with our own souls, and we must say, I love you for who you are. If you are one of those people that say, I'm just going to be who I want to be, beautiful. That's your soul, that's you doing your work. It doesn't have to be work, it doesn't have to be felt as work. That's one of my goals, really, honestly, is to help lift us up out of this idea that we need to do a bunch of work. It depends on what your chosen career path is as well. Some people don't feel like they need to do anything except be who they are in this moment. That's a beautiful work. Okay, the present moment is your best place. A lot of us are getting told we have to go to the past. Your own soul, if you are embodied, will start to bring whatever needs to be brought to you from your past. not always bad. It could be the great memories that were forgotten, because if you're like me, I tended to have a lot of those negative stuff kind of stuck in my mind, and we don't want to just remember the bad, okay? And you'd be surprised, right? The beauty of the everyday moment. So how many people want to have a session online in the moment? Okay? Not many people do, because there's a privacy issue that many are working through, thinking, what would my soul come through for, with for me? It's usually the privacy that is being respected for those who are going to be watching, because they're still figuring out, how do I get my soul to come through without offending her? Okay, because I get a lot of those thoughts, and I understand this is not going to ring the bell for the champions of the world, right? So it's basically saying that once in a while, someone's soul will come through and say something very specific for somebody that's going to make sense for them. I will not necessarily name names or anything like that, and it's not necessarily for anyone that is on the screen presently or not. Remember, I have this casting or streaming to 3 different places. So even if you are aware that there is only one of you, I could have other people watching in the future, and those messages could be for them. If you are an enlightened soul and you say, I just love being with people who can understand the anger that I hold towards others in this world, yeah, it's okay to have anger. It's okay to have disappointment. It's okay to have those feelings. And what it does is it's showing us where we need to do more of that work. Why am I attached to this outcome in this country, right? A lot of people are saying it affects me on a daily basis. Others are saying I know better and I don't go to that place of news. Okay, that can be a place of enlightenment for many. You want to get challenged in your heart by those souls that are affected and get played out on the screen. That will cause a lot of growth for a lot of people if they can do that vision. Others are like, I need a break. I need to take a stand. There is no direct correlation between embodiment and those who are saying that you don't confront anybody. Okay, some of us are here to confront the nation's wisdom. Some of us are here to go global. Some of us are here to stay in our local communities. Others are here to broadcast over the internet. I'm letting people know that there is no one way to be in this world. There is no one soul that is telling you you have to be a certain way, is there? Because that's not necessarily a bad thing as well. So there are plenty of people who are saying, oh, this is the way to be. Do you know how literally impossible that is on a soul level? You are not robots. You each have your own beauty. You have your own thoughts, your own wisdom, your own guidance. Just because you pray to the same God or deity does not mean that you're all going to have the same outcomes. Okay? Because your lives are intermingled as a group, but they are not dependent on each other. Some people are very strict in their understanding of rules of love. That's what we're going to call them. Okay? Not dictates. We'll call them rules. Okay? And some of those are very strong because they can be very enlightening for us about the killing, right? The killing fields. Okay? There are many people that start to understand that soul information is so nuanced that any one law that says that something is wrong often has its opposite, right? That's where a lot of it goes. We are able to unwind a lot of these. They're going to say, there's someone online saying these crackpots who say that, oh, you can't do this or that. Listen very carefully. Some people are fighting for freedom, and in order to do that, they're saying, here's what we need to do. I've got a plan, right? They're telling people what to do. They're guiding people what to do. There's a difference. But in essence, that's kind of what it is. And other people will look at those same people and say, they're dictators. There's something wrong with them, right? It's purely perception. It's purely judgment, depending on where you yourself feel you land in your mind, right? Now, if you can understand and say, well, let me look at both sides, then you might see a reason why. And often there's actually no one side versus another. We're not on either side of a fence. It's more like spectrums of love, okay? That's soul. You're not on one side of anything for the most part. You may say you are, but in essence, most of us will have these exceptions in our minds about what is correct for me, right? What is correct for me versus what is correct for all. When you hit the all, as I have done in many, many videos, then you start to feel the vision of love. And it doesn't matter where people are in their hearts, it's their minds, right? No, that's the nature of it. We're working with mindsets often versus the love of all, which is in our hearts always. So this isn't meant to tell you that there's something wrong with you because you don't necessarily feel the beauty of your own soul vibrating in your body. That was one of the telltale signs for me that something else was going on. And I want to be honest with people. A lot of people would think there was something wrong. I actually adore that vision because it let me know ahead of time I was working with the energy of me, of my soul, versus the vision of just hearing voices, which then puts people on a dangerous path towards either self-diagnosis or diagnosis from a clinician that there's something going on. Many of those people who are in struggle in their minds and diagnosed with one condition or another are often some of the most enlightened beings there are. They just didn't ground themselves in this reality, or they didn't let go of the hopes of being, a guide. Others are saying they're guides for us. Not all souls are meant to do guidance. Others are not working through their hearts. And so some of those beings that are, in other words, feeling like they're kind of the lost ones, right? They haven't been able to deal with certain aspects of their lives most often, or haven't been given the guidance to help free them from the negativity that they keep bringing into their own minds. It's literally a process of discovery for a lot of people. So we don't want to glamorize soul embodiment. What we want you to do is to open up to the nature of who you are. Your family members' souls will often come through and test you, right? They may give you words of love if that's where you reside, which you do, you just don't know it. But in your mind, you might be thinking, why am I hearing from them, right? Why would we hear from people here? A lot of times this is that idea of I'm breaking free of the barriers of my mind, and my heart is opening up to the nature of love of all. And that doesn't mean agreement always. Those highest of highs will say there's nothing to agree or disagree with. To be honest, they just look at the world and vibrate in it. But that's not the reality for the majority of the people who we find not on this planet, but on the internet especially, right? Or in the groups. And a lot of people are going to these ideas of, how do I find people who can align with who I am, who can support me in my vision, who can deem me beautiful no matter where I'm at on my path? My path isn't meant to be a guide, but I definitely feel like I belong in this acceptance of all. See, a lot of people just want to be in a place that feels good, where I'm accepted and loved no matter where I'm at, And I want people there with me who don't cause me like havoc in my mind. Okay, that's where a lot of people do go. I'm one of those people. I really don't like creating a lot of havoc for myself or for others, but I definitely will, because that's the nature of who I am, really. It's one big aspect of who I am. When I say trying to cause havoc, no, it is literally, I'm helping you to see other aspects of the world in a way in which you can then free your mind from a limitation that might be holding you back, not only from understanding yourself, but others. I tend to have that instinct of let me go to understanding versus I will love you no matter what, whether or not we agree to disagree on a matter. Right? So it's not about saying I'm going to take on an issue that's of, like societal impact. That I will do. That's when I bring down those guides. But what I will do is I will tell you that many of us don't realize that the words or the phrases that we use can be very limiting to our own growth, right? Because there is no ability to truly understand another without becoming that other. That's the highest of the high. But what is often needed is an understanding of that. And then you say, okay, that makes sense. And then we utilize those ideas of self-love and say, would I want to project anything else out to the world except self-love? Right? That's who I am. My mind can give me trouble. My heart knows I am definitely feeling good for who I am. I have issues I'm working on. I have conditioning in my mind I still am breaking free from. That's where a lot of it goes. So if you guys are like fearful of the guidance, it's not meant to scare you. I had to break free from fear of like evil. I didn't create with that. So there's a lot of people who aren't even going to align with me because they still feel like they believe that there's something evil, versus I'm creating this place in which I reside, right? Or the idea of, the spiritual paradigms and all of these freaky deaky things that they've created, or turning things into negativity versus why would I vibrate there? If I don't agree with something, I just don't even vibrate with it. Right? And it's not about running away from it, but it's like, why are we creating negativity without actually experiencing it? You see, for me, the negativity that I went through in certain areas was like incredibly horrid. Okay? But I knew that it was mine. I knew I created it. And I knew I wasn't going to go out and say, watch out for this and look out for that, because what happens? Then people plant the seeds for negativity or fear in other areas. Fear is your worst enemy, people. Boom, right? No, but that's why we're vibrating in all of these visions. I'm afraid of loving someone because they don't align with my mindset. Right? I'm afraid to love someone because of what? My family won't agree with them. Society doesn't look upon those people kindly, right? How many people know that? It's fear most often. And a lot of the souls that are enlightened already know that. And it's like, how do you work through the fear? You don't have to create it when it's not there. So for me, I did get told, you aren't afraid of the dark anymore. That should give you a hint. I challenged myself in that even as a child. And I never created anything negative. I actually flipped it around and realized I was being contacted by my own soul in a way that made sense. I was given loving messages in that form as an adult before the process of awakening. That's the beauty. Don't always assume the negative. Don't always assume it's something to be afraid of. Okay? I don't watch those movies that plant the seeds of fear in my mind because I know I'm sensitive to that stuff. It doesn't mean that some people can do that and they love it and they vibrate in it and they say, oh yeah, that feels good. I love getting scared. But I'm telling you, it can be a process of discovery if you then go, oh, okay, I may be fearful, but am I actually going to get hurt? Most often, no. Most often, no. Because most people are starting to see through these ideas of old, and we don't mean that in age, but we're saying, those ideas that people are placing as bad for us. Sometimes we need to realize that we're not in the best place for us and we need to skedaddle, right? That can be part of it. Okay? Sometimes what we're doing is we're creating the negativity in our own environments, and that's usually what's happening. Usually we are in environments where we are creating the negativity, and then if we're perceptive enough, we might be picking up on that. Okay? This is why your own journey of love for yourself is like instrumental in the future for all souls. And that doesn't mean like, someone's saying there's an enemy vision. So some people are saying I have an enemy and I need to know how to unwind the enemy. The enemy within, that's what a lot of the souls will start to create if they don't go through the process of soul embodiment first before they go to that idea of love. I am my own worst enemy in my mind. So this is why we often utilize those cards or other tools. And I want to tell you about something that I can do for people. And it's something that's in the works because I myself am getting it. Is when I do a session with someone, I can often tap in and then I can say, do you want some cards for you? What you will get is your own set of personal, like a deck of cards geared only towards you. That's how strong it is on the guidance. So I've already done that work in like a micro way with someone who I know and love. Okay. And it's a beautiful process. If you have your own deck and you create your own deck, a lot of people love that. They'll utilize, intuitive wisdom. But if you want to know the issues that are actually affecting you and then how to then utilize the cards to unwind it, it doesn't mean that the cards are there forever. It could be cards of wisdom. It could be cards of issues that you are working on and how you then unwind it, right? That's the process that I use. I call it unwinding because that's usually, it feels like we're kind of in knots, right? Sort of, it's like this jumble of us. And so that's another vision of beauty. So for those of you who are thinking, what is it exactly about enlightenment that we need to know? In the end, it's just you. It's just you, right? There's no ending to you. And that's why we keep creating. You are you, and you keep creating and expanding the beauty of who you are. That's all you need to know in the end, right? There's no ending. And that's why people are assuming that there's a lot of love for those, religious realms, which in essence feel like it's more like a destination. We would call it a resting spot for a lot of people, okay? When we figure out that our bodies are just a carrier of part of who we are, okay? And that's where a lot of people can get a little freaked out. But it feels very good to hear your soul come to you and say, I adore you. You are loved. I love you more than anything, right? That's part of it. Because so many of us were hit very hard in the mind by others during our process that we can sometimes feel like we need to just disconnect from people or places or society. A lot of people will go off and figure that they need some time alone to process the information. It doesn't mean there is any one way to be. And I want to stress that very much so. So your own guides, your own soul. See, people are saying, oh, I call upon other guides. They're all part of the process. You can call upon any soul. But when you go to those visions of your own and you start to bring back more of that, that's where that nature of I'm rising in my own abilities, talents, and gifts. I break free from the conditioning of society that tells me that there's something wrong with who I am at any moment. Right? It doesn't mean you are told to go off and just do whatever you want. That's the difference. You will get told many things, many words of wisdom will come through for all of those souls that need that. It doesn't mean that you go out and hurt people, but that's necessary. That sometimes people are saying that's necessary. It's not just about physical or the physicality of our bodies. That will also get talked about in future episodes, because that's a nature that many are struggled with. The body is a barrier to a lot of the soul work. It can feel very dense, but people are making an assumption about what that means. It does not mean it is about the size of your body. Others will disagree and say, I'm not making the choices that are right for me, right? Others will say, I'm good with who I am. This is why we don't judge anybody on their journey based on how they look, because that makes no sense. I can guarantee you that right away. I've reached the high of the highs in many ways and had my hat handed to me by many, because they look and they say, oh, that's easy for you to say. You're under the, the views of guidance. And those ideas of God and majesty all keep coming through. People are wondering, do you have to believe in a certain, being? This is why there was the video, when people don't have that vision of something higher than who they are, they're going to get their soul very strong, brought through, honoring that vision. Okay? Very much so. Because this is what holds a lot of us back, is we are being told, oh, there's something lower than or less than about any one of us here on this plane. And it doesn't mean we don't align with the hierarchical system that we operate under, but that's another system that we're going to be talking about too. Various systems of hierarchy and what that does to us. Okay? So with that in mind, I want to allow for the treasure trove of God to come through. The treasure trove of God is one of all for the most part. We know that various wisdoms will come through. Brenda operates under the vision of Source, even though in her heart she is of the God soul. But what that means is very much her vision of all. So even for those who do not align with those words, right? Any word that you have seen about that vision is not something she necessarily, subscribes to. Okay? She doesn't do it for the sake of every soul on this plane, because she knows every word that we utilize is going to be taken out of context by certain souls. Okay? It's not a bad word, but the vision of Source includes those souls who are outside of the field of any word that could be associated with religion or any one deity. And anyone that understands that would understand. We have so many different, guidance systems that utilize different visions of love. Okay, because that's basically what we would call these visions of love. Okay, so now I want to honor your hearts, your souls, and your love for yourselves. You are all loving of who you are, whether or not you realize it. And we're going to talk about how we reinforce this idea that somehow we're not enough. I'm not enough, right? For who? We can have our hearts handed to us by many, but in the end, we are. We are enough. We just have to, it's like it's interesting. Someone's saying throw the Chamber of Commerce into the equation. This is going to be one of those ideas. Someone is politically active, apparently, and is saying that we're going to be doing work on those types of issues that others are saying are not good for us. And we're going to blow that vision away very fast by the nature of it. Because if anyone says, I'm just going to the next realm, and by doing so, it means I don't have to pay attention to anything anybody else is doing around me, that's when you start getting into those groups where everyone is trying to believe in the same thing, and they're discarding aspects of their soul on this plane. Because in essence, if we're living under a societal vision, we are a part of it and we are creating it. You are not the lone wolf anymore. That's the nature of where we go. You are not the lone wolf. Okay? We don't have to do that vision. We don't have to participate in our minds. But unless you're on your own island, by all means, you're part of the system. Good luck trying to disconnect from that one. Okay? It's not a bad thing. It's not a challenge. It's just an understanding. Let's honor it. And then let's say, where do we go from here? Right? So with that in mind, I want to tell you, you're beautiful, you're loved, you're adored, and I appreciate you for who you are. Whether or not we align with each other, always or at all, okay? Because you are showing me much about what there is to learn about who I am. So take care and have an amazing day.